Hello, I'm GEFerris, your narrator. In 2003, I took my kayak to upernavik once again and paddled down to Laksefjord, equaluarsiut, or pit, and the fishing place. And it was very exciting to be able to do this. Next is some very rough footage taken by my Mavic camera off the deck of my kayak as I was paddling toward the opening of Laksefjord. In this area along the photograph, which is the entrance, before I got there, I had the privilege of taking photographs of these wonderful rock faces showing all their minerals. One of the delightful things about paddling in Greenland is you get to see a lot of minerals that are exposed but not oxidized by conditions. So the colors in the rocks are really very spectacular, especially in this upernavik area. There's a lot of hornblende, there's a lot of gneiss, and sure enough, some beautiful waterfalls cascading down among the rocks. This is what it sounded like. Yes, I enjoyed myself paddling along, looking at all of these minerals. It was really a wonderful experience. Hard to believe. And there was loads and loads of granitic type rocks in this area, along with all kinds of plants growing in the area, and the water was full of seaweeds. Here's a waterfall cascading down. Such a delight in Greenland to see a waterfall just right there at the edge of the water. And this really was how it does look here. This is one of the very few icebergs that ever makes it down into Laksefjord, just drifting around straight across from where I am camping. And here you can see what it looks like, the cloud cover from my campsite, which is roughly mid-Laksefjord. There is a nice robust brook flowing down from the two lakes up above. I have climbed up above and I'm looking straight across at upernavik island, which has got some clouds at a few thousand feet just to show the ceiling. But what is very nice about this area is that plants grow very robustly in this calm area, which is heavily used by people even to this day as a crossover point. And there are remains of houses at the bottom along the water, where I've come numerous times and camped with my kayak, because it's the only place that's really easy to get my kayak up on the rocks and to erect a tent. If my tent looks a little weird, it's because it had a bad day, and all that was left of it was the inner liner of ripstock nylon, and on the outside I put a couple of solar blankets. The tent sort of died of old age. It used to look like this, but those days are gone. I had to buy a replacement when I got back. I've included this geological map because it does tell about the particular mineral deposits in this area, what kind of rock it is, and the fact that it's very high in potash. Just for a study in the currents, I took these photographs of this iceberg as I watched it move up and down this fjord on the currents, straight across at upernavik island, and in a short while later it became overcast. there you are with a new ceiling height. And I am down at the bottom taking this photograph. Once I was on the water, I took this photograph over the side to show in mid-Laksefjord the density and characteristics of the seaweeds that grow here so prolifically on the rock flower dissolved in the water. The rock flower has quite a lot of phosphate in it, which enriches the water greatly. It was fun to capture this moment. Of course, it's quiet with almost perfect reflection of where I was paddling on a beautiful sunny day. This is one of those rare summer day moments when you get a perfect reflection on the waters of the sky above as I'm paddling deeper into Laksefjord. I'm starting to get into an area where there will be bird cliffs and the horizon is changing, but still it's beautiful photographic experience. Coming down, and now there's a little riffle on the water from the wind. I'm deeper into the fjord. I'm starting to see more of the large leafy seaweeds, indicators of lots of nutrients available in the water. The seaweeds are probably Ulva and Monostroma, and they are showing a thin glaze of rock powder on their leaves every so often. This was a vain attempt at trying to take pictures of gulls that were trying to harry me. They were glaucous gulls that happened to live on the cliffs partway down, and also there is a large population of cormorants. Once again, in a very narrow opening on a little tiny island, I passed by the same nesting site with another set of glaucous gull chicks. Every year they nest there and use this nesting site. Now you can see the water really is starting to show a milky turquoisey color to it. This is all that rock flour dissolved in the water. Well, when you get close enough to the source, it gets to be really interesting because you can't see any rocks just below the surface. And so on my first visit here, I rammed into a rock. I was totally shocked, but you just couldn't tell anything was under the surface. Then, as I was just coming down in the lower portion of Laksefjord, a motorboat came by and they spun around and turned and pulled over to me and gave me directions where to find the fishing place, which I would have just paddled straight by because I had no idea really where it was. It would have been off behind me. I knew where the forest was, or pit, but it was so kind of them to direct me to the fishing site. Oh, we had just the grandest time, and even to this day when I go to upernavik, people still remember, oh, you were down there at the fishing site. And this is the fishing site for catching lax. And we just had an endless party. This is the view off of it out over the upper portion from which I had come from. These are some of the rocks that are down there that are so lovely, and also there are very lush plants that grow down here. I climbed up on top to have a look farther down in the fjord because I knew I wasn't going to go paddling down there in all that rock flour. It's impossible to see where any rocks are. Thank you. It's truly amazing to me that lax will come all the way down here and swim up into these lakes to spawn. From up on top, I'm looking over at Langekok land, and what is the ore pit that I plan to visit later. Also, I get to take some wonderful pictures of wildflowers such as this campanula. For everyone in your upernavik commune, we wait all year for this opportunity to come down here and to enjoy catching some fish. I didn't do any fishing, but I just had the greatest time watching everyone else catching fish and eating wonderful Greenlandic food. We just had the greatest time. And then people go back into town and put their wonderful fish in their freezers to enjoy during the winter, especially New Year's and all of the holidays. Now, I was going to go over here in this picture to visit this exotic place. It's a glacial refuge on Laksefjord land, and it's a forest with trees that are 2 meters high. They are thousands of miles north of where anything grows to this height in Greenland. On this map, I'm standing on equaluarsiut and I'm looking straight across an ore pit, which is in this next photograph. I was so lucky to be able to have this view. Only from where I was standing was it possible to get such a perfect overview. This photograph shows the mud hut. Lots of rock flower just when I landed there. Not behind there, barely visible, is a basaltic rock, which produces the source of water in this next video. What I'm showing in the video, which is not unfortunately too particularly visible, is the robust filamentous blue-greens that grow in this water. Here are the rocks liberally coated with rock flower. These are the trees, and they really are indeed 2 meters high. They're all a red willow and a white willow. Normally these willow trees will grow as espalier, hugging the ground completely over rocks. Here is my 203 centimeter paddle, about 7 feet long, just to give you a perspective as to size. I took this picture while I was standing there. It had to be roughly 4 feet off the ground that I was holding the camera. This is what I looked like in 1993 when I was down in orbit. I did set the camera on the ground, so that's why the perspective is a little odd. However, you can still get a perspective as to what the height of the plants really is. I am 5'2" tall. This is the paddle the opposite way, and there's tons of equisetum. They usually are growing about 1.5 feet tall in this picture, just to give you a perspective. Another photograph to show you both the red and the white willow close up for your inspection. Detail of the branches of these willows. An overview of the delta with my kayak sitting out there. Yes, it's a calm day, and you can see how robust all of the growth is in this area because of the heavily enriched dirt. The actual enrichment source is really from the basaltic dike up above, not the rock flower flowing down from the glacier. And that's why everything is growing so prolifically at ore pit. These photographs illustrate the extremely dense growth of this filamentous algae, all being fostered by the water flowing down from the basaltic dike up above on Laksefjord land. Okay, now I'm heading back out. Here's the map. I'm on the north side, along the Orpid side. And of course the wind is blowing down the fjord as it always does. And it's cold air replacing the warm air, so it's about 12 to 15 knots. I've been through this before. It's not that bad, it's just you have to keep paddling. And I'm on the top of the map going along. Now I've passed through the Narrows, where there was always a bird nest on an island, and I'm coming out into the wider area. Just to show you on the map, past that little squeaky island, I'm going along the north side. Now I'm going past the rocks where billions of birds, especially lots of cormorants, live. I remember in 1993 so vigorously paddling down to that rock because it was all white, only to find out lots of cormorants live there, along with a slew of glaucous gulls who were yelling at me. These are some of the metamorphosed sedimentary layers, just to show you the mineralization in this area. Now I have rounded the peninsula on this map, and we'll be heading into an area that has a completely different coastline. Absolutely amazing. It's one continuous rock ramp. The water is still turquoise white, but it's not all that bad. But this is the continuous rock ramp. And believe it or not, the brook you see down the middle with pale green grass along it, or green grass, is shown on the map. The brook in the picture is on the map between the peninsula and the corner. Rather amazing to think it would show up on a map of all things at 1 to 250,000. And this really is a continuous rock ramp, and you can't tell by looking at the map, any map, because the elevation is hardly anything, but it just continues all the way around and on the way up for a number of miles. Just to show you the corner on the map, Reykjavik, and the wind does do just what I have these arrows illustrating it on the map. What was interesting about that corner is there's a spot partway across where it all becomes neutral. That's the kind of thing you only notice when you're in your kayak. Here is what it looks like from the bow of my kayak as I'm heading now up near Amaratelik Island and Langakok Land. I'm going up this passage. And here is the break in the passage, pretty much the end of the passage. And it was getting to be about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. A little while later, I found a nice place to camp after looking around, but it had become a little difficult to find a place that had water. One thing that's very amusing about maps, no matter how greatly they are defined, they don't show you what you're going to have to deal with until you get there with your kayak. Who would ever believe there would be a situation such as this? Just by looking at the maps, you could never tell. One thing for sure, the rocks and the plants in the upernavik commune area for paddling are absolutely beautiful, which makes it a big reason why I love to paddle in this area. Thank you for watching my video. This is GEFerris, your narrator. I'm sorry I didn't have any action to speak of, but I did the best I could with photographs and maps, just to make it exciting so that you could imagine what it was like